Design is global, right? There's certain companies and products that you look up to and that you want to create or like work or be a part of. Especially with like the advent of remote work, that kind of made it easier. You could be somewhere in Nairobi and work for a company that's in San Francisco. Remote work also helps you be able to do that. You know, you can work for a company in India solving, medical service problems. You can work for a company in Nairobi solving like logistics problem. For designers out there, it's very important to share your work. Like you said, opportunity comes from like different places, and like not just the opportunities that you get exposed to, you also get exposed to like feedback, you know, that can also help you improve.
Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of this special segment that we're having called After Hours in partnership with Tanqueray Africa. Now, I have an amazing guest joining us. His name is Aaron. I'll give him an opportunity to introduce himself in a second. But before that, I want to get into the drinks that we're having today. I am having the Daisy Ndogo, and the base of this drink is the one and only Tanqueray Dry, the original. And maybe, Aaron, you can tell us what you're having.
I'm having the Negroni with a Tanqueray Sevilla.
Exactly. So any nice cocktail you're already envisioning, any nice drink, Tanqueray is already at the forefront of what you're thinking if you're trying to have an amazing time. We are having these drinks at Art Cafe Gastro Bar. As you can see, a very wonderful, lovely location. So make sure you try this drink and thank me later. I know it's the festive season. This is also a call for you to drink responsibly, even if you're going to be drinking and having a good time with your friends. Drink more water. Okay, hydrate, eat some food, and of course, keep the good vibes going. That is out of the way. Now let's get into the conversation of the day. My name is Alice Kanjejo, your lovely host, and Aaron, I am going to give you the space to introduce yourself as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction.
Thank you.
My name is Aaron Onu. I'm a senior product designer. Been a product designer for the past 6 years. I'm also the co-founder of a design studio called Los Hombres. What we do is support founders and startups with design solutions and design services to help them design and create products that their users love and trust.
I love that. I think I not had a guest speak on design for a while, which is such an integral part of any tech product. So I'm really curious to know more about what you're going to tell us today. So maybe you can start with telling me, did you always know you wanted to be a designer? I'm assuming not, but let us know where your journey began. What were you interested in, and how did you transition into design?
Not design per se. I think I'd always been surrounded by design in some shape or form.
Okay.
But initially, I was drawn to computers. I wanted to be a software engineer, but I had like early exposure to design. My brother was going to what we call a computer school. So he would come home and practice what he was learning, try to use CorelDRAW to recreate logos of certain brands like Pepsi's and Coca-Cola. So I would, watch and try to do that as well. And then at school, we used PowerPoints, designs and presentations. So those were my early, interactions with design. But it wasn't up until, I would say, 2016. I spent time with a friend of mine who was a graphic designer at the time. I saw how he was creating several interactive media, graphics, posters and things for different brands. And I was really interested. So I begged him to teach me. He didn't eventually teach me because he was quite busy. But by that time, I think I already caught the bug. Mm-hmm. So I spent the next 1 year trying to learn, trying to just get as much information as I could. And then...
Were you a creative person when you were trying to do this exploration?
I wouldn't say creative, maybe maybe not in the tech space. I'm like creative in terms of my fashion sense, my music taste. Probably.
I think that's where it all starts from,
exactly.
Right? I think if you're someone who is in design or whether it's video editing or it's just some level of creation.
Exactly.
There's certain common traits in terms of creativity that also show up in different ways.
So I think that's helped me, I guess.
Yeah.
So by the time I spent 1 year learning as much as I could, I got an internship at Jumia, which is like one of the biggest e-commerce firms in the world.
Were you studying what were you studying at that time?
Oh, I graduated at the time. I studied electrical electronics engineering.
Okay.
Which is a far cry from what I'm currently doing. But I mean, I think what that taught me was more like structure, have like an engineering mindset.
Yeah.
But really my passion for design was already like ignited.
Really
so
brewing.
During my internship, I was exposed to how data user research was being used to curate and craft a better shopping experience for users. So I found that intriguing. Then after my internship, I did spend some more time to learn as much as I could. And I was privileged to get an opportunity to be a UI UX designer at an agency. So that's where I, sharpened my skills and learned. And I think those early interactions with design have served me all through my journey here. Yes.
No, I like that. One, that you had an opportunity to work at Jumia, like you said, which at that time, even now, is one of the biggest e-commerce platforms. And then, maybe at first you were just interacting and just building something cool, but now understanding the background of what it is that you're building. I want to know about the transition between Jumia to you working for this design studio. Was it just like it stumbled upon your door, or were you actively seeking for another growth opportunity?
So Jumia was quite early in my career, actually. I think between Jumia and now, I've worked at some other, really innovative companies.
Yeah.
I was the founding designer at a shared mobility startup called Trips back home, and I think that was a pivotal experience for me. And then after Trips, I led design on the Audiobooks team for Speechify. Speechify is a text-to-speech reader, one of the biggest in the world. The design studio came about, I guess, more in my, like exposure to the market around me. I see more founders struggling to give like form to their ideas, and build products that solve the problems that they are trying to solve, and I think that's where we come in, to be able to help these people like refine their thoughts. We handle things like research, the UI, building out the products as well, ensuring like, the experience is smooth and usable. And those are the things that we're kind of really focused on. Right now we're focused on the startups and, founders, because we believe that, we can contribute to the evolution of the tech space, especially in Kenya here. So that's where we're kind of focused.
That's where you're currently at. Okay, well, love to hear that you guys are doing all this. I want to know about you, Aaron. I want to know about you moving from Jumia to the design studio, to you working for Speechify and you doing this. What are you picking along the way, first of all? Like, what are some of the things that you're seeing are essentially the problem when it comes to design, or how products are built, or how people look at design, or just your journey in general? What are some of the challenges that you would say that you encountered? I know that at that time you were based in Lagos. Were you always working or looking to work for organizations that are within the country that you are in, or did you feel the need to expand so that you can successfully build great design?
So let me start with, I think, like one of the challenges that you mentioned.
Yes.
I think a couple of things that I guess I struggled with when I was on my journey. One of the things is like sifting through the amount of information that's out there to really like find what is relevant to my journey and the things I wanted to learn. After navigating that, finding the right information, following the right people, listening to the right conversations, the next thing was, now I've gotten a role somewhere.
Yeah.
How do I advocate for design? And what you find is that in the startup space, especially, which is where I've cut my teeth in for most of my career, things are moving really fast. Products are changing, the business is pivoting from one place to the other. So that often means that design is left behind. Design is not really given a seat at the table, because
you're thinking of
business, thinking of business. How do you get the products in the hands of the users? So that can really be a problem. But I've also been fortunate enough to have worked in places where, they see the value of design. Because people like to use what looks and feels good, and what works well as well. And that is what design contributes to. Not just how it looks, how it works, is it fast enough? Is it solving the problem? Am I getting like the right responses for the inputs I'm providing to the product? So yeah, being able to advocate for design at every stage has been difficult, but I think combining like user feedback with like data as well, that usually helps. Because like it's much easier to have a conversation with the founder when I can show them like feedback from the users that say like the experience is broken or janky and needs to be changed, and I can back it up with data, and I can see on our onboarding there's a drop off here right before users subscribe to premium, things like that. So when you're getting into rooms and you're having this kind of conversation, you're showing data, you're showing user feedback, it kind of helps to show the value of design.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to just interrupt you and just focus a bit more on what you've talked about, and that's data. Okay. I think sometimes if someone is looking to get into design, I think you're thinking about the user experience, but rarely do I ever interact with someone who is talking to me about the data points as well, in terms of, okay, these are the drop-off points, this is why people are not engaging, and then linking that to design. A lot of time, maybe people will link it up to marketing, or maybe the product itself is not good enough, but there's a lot of interaction that could come from that. So I want to know, when it comes to data, as a designer, is there something that I should be on the lookout for, and how deep of data analysis? Because maybe, like I said, some would argue that, or maybe drop-off points are because of marketing or this, but what do I need to do if I'm coming into a startup to convince people that these are metrics, or what are the metrics that you need to look at as a designer?
I mean, it varies, right? You mentioned marketing, and for a solid product experience, marketing is also kind of involved, right? Yeah. Those are cross-functional teams that you need to engage with to ensure that you are building the right product, or your product is actually serving a purpose. And it's important, marketing plays a role, like what's the funnel, how are the users coming in? And sometimes where the users are coming in from kind of determines what kind of experience that they are presented with. Exactly. So someone who sees an ad on a blog, and someone who does research and comes through, like downloads your app, I think their experiences and expectations are kind of different, right? So those are things you have to take into consideration. And like for data, I always say, I think I picked it up. Data is not like the end of the conversation. It's just like the start of the conversation. Some people have data like, we have 100 users and, we only have 50 paying users, and only certain number of users complete this task, and that's it. But that's like start of the conversation. Okay, why are users dropping off here? Again, what part of the experience is broken? That's why you now speak to like the user. Exactly. You have conversations with the users. When you're privileged enough to be able to have, conversations with your users, you find out, what exactly is going on. And again, there are several like analytic tools that you could also use. There's heat mapping. You can see where users are clicking. You can use like, things like time to task completion to see if, your experience for certain tasks is broken or can be improved. And like, design is an iterative process. It doesn't end when you ship your app. It doesn't end that.
No, when you ship the MVP, it's not
it doesn't end. So you keep
it's
like refining, you keep testing, you keep like, trying to get to that optimal experience. So, yeah.
Okay. Let's get into the job market. There's a school of thought. We had, the last designer we had was Alice Kanjejo, wonderful designer, but we had a conversation when oversaturation, quote unquote, of the industry, specifically UI UX design. There are people who think that so many people are designers and not many opportunities. Another question could be, did you then decide to start your design studio because the job market was a certain way? What do you think about the job landscape right
I think
now?
it's
opportunities rather.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. Also, Alison is a fantastic designer as well. She's someone I also like seen her work, and she's a lovely designer. I think it's a bit of both, right? So job markets, yes, there's a lot of I don't know if I would say it was saturation. The barrier to entry for UI UX design or product design is not crazy. That's what I say. I mean, it requires a lot of time, investment, but it's not the same as like, say, for example, something like, studying medicine or engineering, There's a very like rigid path for those, professions. So maybe that's why you have like a lot of people going into the field, because once you have like a solid understanding of the basics, like the design principles and patterns, you can start creating something. So maybe that's that. But again, like, yes, the job market recently hasn't been, I wouldn't say it has been great. That's why you have a lot of like, designers starting like design studios, subscription services, freelancing. And like, again, there's still a lot of opportunities there. And yes, there are, again, tons of designers. There are also tons of like virtual assistants. There are also tons of like, social media marketers.
It's just about how to stand out.
Yeah, exactly. How to stand out, how to carve a path for yourself, and what your own unique value is. So I think that's what usually kind of helps to stand out.
To stand out. Okay, I want to take you back to the conversation we were having previously about your experiences that you've had so far. So we left it at still in the job market. You deciding, was it a strategic move for you to move or to not stay in one place? Or was that had nothing to do with your design decisions?
Oh, like me moving, like being in Nairobi, for example.
Or even just outsourcing for jobs outside of Nigeria at that time. I want to know why you decided to think outside
of like my current geography. Yeah, I mean, so design is global, right? There's certain companies and products that you look up to and that you want to create or like work or be a part of. So especially with like the advent of remote work, that kind of made it easier. You could be somewhere in Nairobi and work for a company that's in San Francisco. So I think once those opportunities started opening up, it opened up, like, I guess, my mind to the possibilities of contributing to products and like experiences for people in a completely different country. For example, I'll give you an example. While I worked at Speechify is based in America. I mean, it's worldwide, but it's mostly based in America. And the problem we were solving was trying to help people read and listen better. So Speechify helps to convert text to speech, right? And you can use that on like your textbook or your Safari extension. On Safari or Chrome, you could take a picture and have it play back. So it was helping people that were not even within my geographical location, right? And that was something that matters to me. It's something that matters to me, right? I care about like working on things that help improve the lives of people. While it was at trips, it was solving the problem of public transportation, helping people move from one place to the other. At Speechify, it was helping people like improve their comprehension, and reading should not be a barrier to learning. And some people who are like dyslexic, that is a problem. So Speechify was solving that problem. That's something that improves the quality of lives of people. And when I speak to users and like people who use the product, the feedback that I was getting, how it was helping them like improve their lives was really like empowering, right? So those are the type of things that I care about. And remote work also helps you be able to do that. You can work for a company in India solving, medical service problems. You can work for a company in Nairobi solving like logistics problem, and I guess like those things make it attractive. And that's really the
So at no point did you think, okay, maybe I don't want to work for a startup or this, or just like be integrated into regular corporate 8 to 5? Was that something that was
No, actually, I don't think that ever came to mind. I say like the context or the nuance of the tech space is there's less rigidity, right? And even when you start off early in your career, you start to see that things are not as rigid.
Yeah.
And that comes with a lot of opportunities as well. I mean, it comes with its own challenges, but like that also comes with a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
So I don't think, that was not really in my thoughts.
That was not in your peripheral. Okay, well, thank you for that. Before we continue, I want to just remind you guys that Tanqueray is the drink of choice, and you should have it, especially at the Art Cafe Gastro Bar. Remember to drink responsibly during this holiday season. I want you to express to me about now your journey into entrepreneurship, or as you're transitioning. I'm not sure if you've already done a full transition, but what was that extra push for you to do that? Did you want to make more impact, or was that specific needs that you felt that the market needed that you could address?
I mean, I don't think there's a shortage of amazing designers out there. I think it's a combination of both like the situation of the job markets, opportunities that we notice, like also speaking to people who are also building products as well. And then just seeing the gap, or like the design gap, and recognizing that it's an opportunity to also be able to offer like my service, my skill, to be able to bridge that gap. And I've worked with a few founders. I don't know if you've heard of Interest Africa. Interest helps you find like events and activities that are tailored to your interests. So in that, I guess like working relationship, we got to see how like, you know, how much of an impact like design could have, especially for founders who are still trying to give form to their ideas, who are still trying to, you know, work through how their product should work and what it should look like, how it should function. So those are things that, you know, precipitated that move. And like plus, I think it's also like a wave of, you know, designers that I look up to, designers in the space, also going towards more like, I guess like entrepreneurship, owning their own businesses, starting subscription services. So I think coupled with that like trend and like the position I found myself in, I mean, it made sense to make that that transition. Plus I also had like really amazing designers as well who we figured like we could really make an impact. We really like build some really fantastic products. I mean, you've seen Good Skin, which is a skincare product.
No, I've seen your portfolio. Maybe we'll just add a bit of highlights to just show a bit of your work. I think you have a keen eye for it, and I have seen Good Skin, which is what you're
Thank
working
you so
on.
much.
Do you want to tell them about Good Skin briefly?
I mean, so Good Skin is a routine builder. So what Good Skin helps you do is build a routine that is tailored to your specific skincare goals and skincare problem. So what we help you do is, you know, along with providing a routine that you can use, we also like recommend products based on ingredients.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when you ask people, you know, what are you using for your skin? They tell you, I'm using a CeraVe cleanser. Why do you use it? What about it? They don't know. So we also really focus on all about like, you know, education on what like,
people
this is why you should use this ingredient. This is why you should prioritize something that has humectant or hyaluronic acid since you have dry skin, so you can hydrate and moisturize the skin. So
has this made you more skincare savvy? You're mentioning things that the boys are listening to.
No, it has actually. It has, because like to be able to build a product, we need to understand you know, how it works. Yeah, so it did help. You know, I think my knowledge of skincare has definitely gotten better. It can even get better.
It can get even better.
But it definitely has gotten better. So.
No, I love that. You've mentioned that, okay, you had a lot of people around you who maybe also were really good designers who could help you sort of decide to start this venture yourself. I'm at the school of thought that based on just everybody that I've talked to on this platform, that it also has something to do with the industry or the space. I think that the itch, I think in the previous episode in the same segment, there's an itch that people have when you work at a startup or, you know, within the tech space, mostly startups, that you start building this team or you're working with this team and everyone's going towards this goal and everybody's so strongly about impact and what they're doing and their decisions making sense. And I somewhat feel that feeds into the mentality that everybody has in their different contexts. So would you say that what your experience working in the different organizations, trying to make impacts in different contexts, somewhat influenced your decision to then say, okay, maybe I can do this by myself as well?
I would say, you know, when you work at a startup, right, you're much closer to, I would say you're much closer to the problems, the nitty-gritties of how things are working, right? So you see how like the founder operates with the engineers, who operates with the, you know, social media team, the marketing team, and you kind of see how like that synergy kind of comes together. Again, small team, you guys are, you know, really working non-stop, putting your heads together. And I think that's kind of cultivates like a problem-solving mentality. Because at a startup,
That's the one.
there's a lot of problems, right? Lots of things that go wrong. You're still trying to find like product market fit. You're still trying to acquire new users and keep the users that you have, trying to refine your product experience so like, you know, users can actually use it. So I think that close proximity to problems being solved it kind of teaches you how to solve
How to
problems
solve
as well.
problems
It
and
gives
look for problems.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's one of the things that precipitated that evolution to want to create something, want to have a product studio that create products of its own. Yeah, so I think that's where that drive is from.
That's where that drive is from. Okay, do you want to tell us a bit more about some of the projects that you would say you're proud to have worked on?
Oof. I've been privileged to have worked on a couple of interesting products that have solved like some interesting problems. For example, one of the ones I'm most proud of, I'll say Trips. I joined Trips.
What's the word you told me? Don't tell me. Waka, Plenty Waka. Yes.
Yeah. So Trips started off as Plenty Waka, and like Waka is like a cultural, like local language that was incorporated to to offer some form of like familiarity. When you say Waka, you're going somewhere. I want to start my Waka. I want to start my journey.
Yeah.
And what Plenty Waka or Trips right now was solving is a problem of like public transportation. Trying to make it easy for people to move from one place to the other, especially as the country was getting more industrialized. That means that population is increasing. That means that more people are moving to urbanized areas and more people are moving from one place to the other. So that was a unique problem. And I think when I joined the team, it was still at its infancy. Be able to contribute, redesign the first version of the app that established Trips as a mainstay. It helped Trips raise 3 million in seed funding and expand to 3 countries. That I would say that's one thing that
to 3 countries.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I would say most pivotal because it's really amazing seeing a product or like a problem space that you try to solve, or you try to chip away at, and then you see it become a thing that people rely on. You go into the field, you go to the bus stops, the routes that we operate on, and then you hear people talk about how they use this only to get to work, or how this has made commuting for them much easier. So those are the things that I guess made me feel like my work had an impact. And like I said, I care about working on things that help add a bit of quality to the life of someone. Yeah. So.
No, I like that, honestly, and I like that is the example that you also gave, and the project that was on time and that it expanded into more than one market. I think that is important, and I do agree that something about, again, you're constantly building or you're helping out, doing here and that, but now seeing it come to life and having that real-time interaction from users, I was gonna say there's nothing more rewarding than that, but it is a rewarding experience.
It is.
I mean, 100%. Well, in this, now you can tell us a bit more about, what you guys are working on. You had mentioned that there's some of the services that you provide, but give us a bit more details about what Los Hombres is about and why the name and who are the Hombres and everything in between.
So Los Hombres in Spanish is actually means the men.
Yeah.
But to us it means the brothers.
Yeah.
It's a combination of a bunch of creatives who want to put together like our experience to create things that we think are valuable. We think will solve problems for people. So we have a product studio where we work on like creating our own products. Good Skin is one of them. And we also have some other things which I don't want to put out there because we're still.
Tell us.
And then we also have we have the design studio, so where we provide like design services, whether it's no-code development or building out your products, building out your designing and building out your mobile apps, your website, your web apps, things like that. So that's where we offer our services and expertise. One of the reasons why we choose, we work with large organizations as well, but one of the reasons why we are kind of focused on startups and founders is because, like I mentioned, that close proximity to the problems, the decision makers, we want that.
You want that. You don't want to be like you're third in the hierarchy of people who are giving you
we want to be able to be connected to the problem in the problem space and be able to help the founders map it out, figure it out. So that's kind of where we've been focused on. And
what would you say I mean, could be a tough question, but what would you say sets you guys apart from other design studios?
Well, I think it's the combination of the experience that we have. You know, we are not to toot our own horn, but I think, you know, when it comes to what we do, we are best in class, right? You know, we have.
Period.
Yeah, I think we're best in class. You know, we have a wealth of experience. We've been doing this collectively for over like 13 years now in different spaces.
Wow.
You know, what I say in 3D space, across different, you know, industries, from logistics to health to transportation, like I mentioned, to education. So like that wealth of experience, I think it helps us to be able to, you know, connect with not just like the businesses, but like the people they are trying to meet, like the target audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow, I like that. First of all, 13 years of experience.
In total, more than 13
total.
years of experience. I've been the designer for over 6 years now.
Yeah, you mentioned.
And you know, my co-founders as well have been doing it for equally as long.
It's
So
a long
it's a long time.
No, there's something that experience nobody can take away from experience.
Yes.
I think you can be a phenomenal designer, and you can start off as a phenomenal designer, but there are a few things that experience can never take away. I
Yes.
see that a lot as well in different contexts, even younger founders. They could be very genius, but there's something about that experience of having tried, tested, failed, different interactions that, you know, is irreplaceable. So
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's something about, you know, getting your hands dirty. You know, when you dig for gold, sometimes you start to understand what type of terrain you're not supposed to dig in. You know, you start to find out, you know, patterns of like, okay, if the soil is too soft in this side, it means there's no gold. There are rocks here, you know. And then you keep like iterating, adapting, and you learn. Sometimes you learn certain cues that you don't necessarily have to experience or come in contact with before you make the right decisions.
Yeah.
So that definitely helps.
makes
And you know, it comes with exposure. It comes with getting your hands dirty. You know, just putting yourself out there and, you know, trying to do the things that you want to do. So that helps.
trying to do the things that you want to do.
That definitely helps. I mean, especially with like the advancement of artificial intelligence, it's the gap between, like, you know, having an idea and executing it is getting smaller. It's shrinking by the day, because, you know, each day there are like several like advancements, several like major advancements in the AI space that could definitely help people take their ideas from just ideas to like actual products and actual like solutions and stuff.
So yeah, what I'm hearing from you, and what I think the advice that I'm going to give anybody who's aspiring to be a designer, is that I think even before you conclude that this is something that you want to do, it's important for you to go through the things that maybe you don't want to do. Or I remember talking to you previously and telling me that you're trying to do design almost every single day, to even address the issue of oversaturation. Alison said it best, that yes, there's so many designers, but there are few really good designers. So it's about the everyday interactions that you're doing and problem solving, and that mentality. A lot of it has to do with the mentality that you have to be able to, like, I guess, move to the next point. I think my next question is, you know, do you think you have any regrets throughout your journey to get to where you are today, or was everything relevant in your journey?
No regrets, although I did wish I learned how to code much earlier, but I wouldn't say I have any regrets.
That's also another thing. Like, I think I whenever I interact with designers as they keep growing and evolving, coding is the next step. So is that something that designers need to start considering from the get-go, and why the need to know how to code?
I mean, it helps, right? It helps to communicate your ideas better. It helps to even build your ideas, right? You can have like a beautiful Figma file, beautiful curated ideas, but having that extra step of, like, you know, building out these components, or building out, even if you don't build out the entire thing, you can build out like a certain, you know, user flow or interaction. You know, it helps to better communicate your ideas. And, you know, one of the things I see is a lot of transition of designers towards building. You know, people want to build more ideas. You know, if you're in the startup space, you know, or if you've worked at any company, sometimes you see problems, right? I'll give you an example. The founders of Chowdeck, or was it Chowdeck or one of them, I think fintech companies, I'm not sure if I remember. I think is it Mono? Might have been Mono actually, yeah. I remember the co-founder or the founder saying while they worked at Paystack, they could see problems, they could identify problems, that they went on their own way, and those were engineers, right? So the more your proximity to certain like problem spaces, you start identifying where you can solve problems. And like, it's not enough to just like, now anyways, it's not enough to just have like a design of how it will work. It will also help to be able to build these things out. You can put them in the hands of the users easily, you can get someone to test them, you can get into like,
that's what makes you stand out, like not only did I design this, I was able to, if you're not able to do it, bring my friend over to just test it out, do like a pilot thing, and that's what I would assume gets you far.
Yeah, it definitely helps. It helps you communicate your ideas better. You can like, go from just being a designer to like a builder. And I think one of the things I've seen is lots of people making that transition towards what you call like a design engineer, a designer who can actually like write some code, who can like, build out certain interactions. You don't necessarily have to go like deep into towards like data handling, caching and all those things.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just like, building out like a piece of the UI, fleshing out the UI, ensuring like, that you can flesh out like certain interactions, you can show how certain interactions will work or certain user flows. It makes it easier. You've taken out like, you've basically gone like maybe halfway or 50%. Literally. And then you can like, when you speak to other like engineers, then you can now talk about like data handling, how does data move from one place to the other. But what you've done,
the product,
yes,
like,
it takes you like much step closer to the finished product.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I think there's so many guests that we've had on this podcast, and now I'm talking to you directly. There's so many guests that we've had on this podcast that have come and proven that it's all about trying and failing or learning along the way. You just have to put your work out there, whether it's in the portfolio, whether it's in you becoming, having some experience with coding, whether in a different context, it's you, marketing yourself as you're trying to get opportunities. There's always, luck is, I say this all the time, and I think this should be one of the mottos in my podcast, opportunities when luck meets preparation, and you just need to be prepared for when the opportunities come. I don't think you would have been where you are or made those connections if you weren't prepared or you weren't building what you were doing. Doing what you were doing, and your work is clean and thinking about the data points and good UI UX interaction. So applaud you for that as well,
Thank
honestly.
you.
I think as we close off this episode, I just want to ask you, do you have one more thing that you think you want to share with our audience, or something you want to give advice, a piece of advice?
I was just going to piggyback on what you said about like sharing your work. I think, especially as designers, it's quite important. It is. And I say this even as a reminder to myself as well. If you go on my socials, I'm not active on too many social platforms, but if you go on my Twitter, for example, you will find more images of my work and examples of my work than you will find actual tweets from me. Right. So I think for designers out there, it's very important to share your work. Like you said, opportunity comes from like different places, and like not just the opportunities that you get exposed to, you also get exposed to like feedback. That can also help you improve. So I think just putting your work out there, either it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram, it's on TikTok.
But we already had a discussion, Aaron. You're gonna be on TikTok.
I'm gonna be everywhere.
On Instagram.
I'm gonna be everywhere. Because it's very important.
It is.
We're in a very I always say we're in the most connected times we've ever been as a civilization.
Yeah.
Right. So your reach, you can be in Nairobi and be touching people in Cambodia or in the Philippines.
Don't close yourself off.
Yeah, exactly. So showing your work helps you, do that. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would say I would advocate for. Share your work.
Share your work. Wow. I think we're gonna close off the
Thank you
episode
so
there. Thank you guys so much for listening to this far. It's been amazing to have you on the platform.
Thank you so
Aaron.
much for having me.
For the festive season, remember that Tanqueray is your drink of choice, but remember to drink it responsibly. Make sure that you drink more water, hydrate, have some food before you indulge, and make sure that you're enjoying yourself and listening to this podcast. A reminder for you to subscribe from wherever you're listening from, whether that's on YouTube, Spotify, or any of the major platforms. Check out our website at mtsafrica.co and subscribe to our newsletters at mtsafrica.co/join. Last but not least, follow Aaron's work. The grapevine is saying that he's going to be active on socials, but I don't know which one you want them specifically.
Don't worry, you add that to the show notes.
Yeah, we'll add it to the show notes. Should you want to find him, you can check out more details in the description. And of course, thank you so much for gracing our episode.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
See you in the next one. Bye.